Hello and welcome back to Flint Hills Briar. I'm Gareth, coming to you from my campsite here in the northern reaches, if I can talk, northern reaches of the Flint Hills of Kansas. I'm out here camping at one of my favorite fall and winter camping areas. Sitting here bundled up like the Michelin Man, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, whoever. It's actually about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's really not that cold. It is a little bit breezy. There's a lot of moisture in there. It rained pretty much all yesterday. It was very misty, and I guess it basically stopped raining by the time I got out here at 8:30 or something like that. But still this kind of misty, wet stuff going on. I'm smoking some the Merry Monk in my Savinelli 130, no 310. 310. Right? Yeah, 310 KS. Yeah, this is I guess Greg Pease's recreation of a blend from is it Dacker and Son, something like that. I guess a tobacconist that he kind of got his start at. I think it was in Berkeley, California, if I remember right, or they moved there or something like that. But yeah, some good stuff. But I wanted to say before I forget that Elk River Trail, like backpacking trip, how I got the first video edited and uploaded, and there's supposed to be a second part to that, and there will be, but apparently I have messed with it last week and a half, and I kept having problems with the audio being really out of sync. Finally figured out it has something. I think it got recorded with some sort of like variable frame rate, which I guess messed all that up. So I think what I'm going to have to do is just upload the main video clip of me talking just on its own. It's unedited glory. Not that it would have been edited that much, that part of it, but I had some more video clips of, some of the sights and sounds and such, set to some music, and I was going to put all that together. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to upload the talking part, which is the goofed up part, and then I'll put the other stuff together and I guess upload that too. I mean, it's not going to be all that great of a video in and of itself, considering it was supposed to be a video as, all that stuff all in one piece. But anyway, I guess at least I'll upload it, and if you feel like watching it, great. If you don't, that's great too. But yeah, tonight I'm going to bake some couple little pizzas. I have this Outback oven thing, little backpacking oven set up that I bought like over 25 years ago. Put on like a backpacking stove and bake stuff. But I'm gonna make some Canadian bacon and pineapple pizza. I know some people think that's disgusting, but I don't. Have some pineapple pizza and some Pinot Noir. Not that that's a good pairing, but sometimes I enjoy some wine while I'm hanging out here. Wine goes perfectly well with camping. Even, it's not going to be too terribly cold. Hardcore winter stuff, I wouldn't bother with it. But this pipe tobacco blend, the Merry Monk, has I like the name of it. Now, I don't know if I have mentioned this on my channel here or not, but once upon a time, I was never a monk. I wasn't even a friar because I didn't get that far into it. But once upon a time, I joined a religious community, Catholic religious community. It was a group of Franciscans. They're down in Alabama. So I wound up moving to Alabama for a little while anyway. State that I never really foresaw moving to ever in my life, but there I was. Alabama is not particularly a very Catholic state in general. But of course, there's some folks there that are Catholic. But anyway, yeah, so I spent about 6 months as a postulant, which is like it's like your first year that you spend as you're like a candidate to enter the order. So I was a postulant for about 6 months. After your year of postulancy is up, then you're a novice for 1 year. Then after that, and that's when you get the habit. You have a Franciscan habit, the brown robe sort of thing. It's not a robe, but except the novice habit didn't have a hood, whereas the full-blown habits did. Then after you're a novice for a year, then you start taking temporary vows, which you renew on a yearly basis until you get to the point where they let you make your solemn profession. That's where you take your vows on a permanent basis. But anyway, yeah, I spent about 6 months as a postulant, and it was one of those things where I just, it's a long story, but I just felt like that's what God wanted me to do with my life. So once I finished up my undergrad degree at K-State in psychology, that next fall, I went down to Alabama and I entered the order. And I was all set to do it. I mean, I was, all in. But it didn't take too long. Now, looking back on it now, that type of life, even though I still love it in a lot of ways, it's just not for me. It wasn't for me. It never would be for me. And I was only there a few months where I could already, looking back on it now, I could already see how it was kind of taking its toll on me. I'm one of those kind of classic introvert type people who you really need your own kind of like personal alone time in order to recharge. That's probably part of the reason why I love going camping by myself, to be honest. But when you're living a life where it's very regimented, you get up more or less at a certain time, and you go down to the chapel for morning prayer in the morning, then mass and the rosary and all this stuff. And like in the evenings, usually from 7 p.m. or so to 10 or 11 or whatever, when you'd go to sleep, you'd have some free time. And that time was very important to me. Not that I even realized that it was important to me, but when anything stepped on that time, whenever something was going on where I had to go do something, oftentimes that would not sit well with me. But anyway, it's one of those things where I was trying to make it work. I was trying to do everything to make it work. It obviously wasn't really working. I was getting really depressed. It was taking its toll on me. I mean, it was got to be where it wasn't a pretty situation, because I was getting super depressed and just wasn't in a good place mentally. And it was all because I was kind of banging my head against a wall. I was trying to make something work that clearly wasn't working for me. And then after about 6 months, not that it was that bad the whole time, but the last few months definitely were. And anyway, they kind of figured that out, and it was one of those things where it's a situation where somebody else has to kind of see what's going on for you, because you can't really see that yourself. So they figured out, that it wasn't working out, and they sent me home. Which was what needed to happen. So that was my time as a Franciscan postulant. Not a monk. Franciscans aren't monks, they're friars. There's a bit of a difference. Monks tend to live in a monastery where they pray and work. They do a lot of prayer and they work on stuff. And they usually work with things that, for just the life of the monastery, the workings of the monastery. I guess I don't know what word I'm looking for, but just things that need to be done, cooking, cleaning, maintenance, stuff like that. But also, usually monasteries have some sort of thing that they do, that they sell or whatever, they make some sort of a product, which they sell, which generates funds to support the life of the monastery. And over the years, it's been stuff like, well, now some places they'll make fruitcake, or fudge. There's a monastery, a Trappist monastery out in Kentucky, the Gethsemane Abbey. It's a Trappist monastery. It's where Thomas Merton was, if you've ever heard of him. But they make fruitcake and fudge, and they're both very good. And the fudge has a lot of bourbon in it too, as it should, being that it's made in Kentucky. At least some of their fudge has bourbon in it. They used to make cheese, but I think, and I've had some of the cheese, it was all right. I mean, for what I paid for it, I didn't enjoy it enough for what I paid for it. It's one of those type of cheeses that don't smell very good. Of course, if you smell any cheese, they really don't, none of them really smell good, but they no longer make the cheese, and I have a feeling it's because they don't have as many monks there anymore, and a lot of the monks there are older, so I think that they can't take care of the cows anymore and milk them and all that. But anyway, some monasteries would brew beer, make wine, Dom Perignon champagne. That's Dom Perignon was a Benedictine abbot, I guess. I'm assuming that originated at a monastery over in the Champagne region in France. Chartreuse, if you've heard of that, that's a liqueur that comes from a monastery. I think it's called the Chartreuse Monastery, I think it's in Belgium, if I remember right. But anyway, monasteries do that sort of thing. Whereas orders like the Franciscans, the Dominicans, can't think of any other ones offhand, but they're the mendicant orders, which I guess means kind of like the beggar orders. but they live a more active, at least traditionally, a more active life where they go out of where they live and, preach the gospel essentially. To sum it all up, they go out and do God's work out in the world, I guess you'd say, but within the church, try to spread the church sort of thing. And friars live in what's usually referred to as a friary, although sometimes you'll hear them called monasteries. And I don't know if that's like a technical, I don't know if like certain like Franciscans actually live in monasteries and and somehow those monasteries are different than a friar, or if the terms are just kind of used in an interchangeable manner, even though maybe they really shouldn't be so interchangeable. But anyway, yeah, there is a bit of a difference between monks and friars. I was a first year candidate friar. But I have a big time soft spot in my heart for the religious life, as it's called. Monks and friars, that sort of life. Having tried to, feeling that I was called to it and having tried to live it. It was one of those things that going on that journey in my life, I was all into. I mean, I was all in, and that's the path my life took for about 3-something years. Once I kind of felt I had a call to it and all that, until it kind of at the end sort of dumped me out at the end, and I felt like it kind of had blown up in my face. And actually, about a year after I left the friary down in Alabama, I went back and visited for a better part of 2 months, just kind of trying to feel out if maybe a return was, like me returning there, maybe had been something that would be a good idea or not. I mean, looking back on it now, I see how kind of silly of an idea that was. But at the time, I thought maybe I'd kind of done some things, kind of approached some things wrong the first time around. So I thought maybe knowing that, I could kind of do it a little bit differently and maybe it'd work out or something. So I went down there, and at the end of it, they decided that I kept hemming and hawing whether I should go back, whether I should just move on with my life. And at the end of it, towards the end of it, I arrived at the feeling that I felt like if they would take me back, then I would go back. I would give it another go. But if they didn't take me back, I really felt that meant that I needed to kind of go back into the world and find something else to do with my life. I needed to find another path. And once that time was up, they didn't take me back, which apparently I didn't realize this when I went down there to visit, but the chances of them taking me back were almost none to begin with. Just kind of how the religious life works. So after all that had run its course, I felt, kind of betrayed by God, I guess. Felt like I had put everything into following this path, and it just kind of dumped me out at the end of it. And I felt lost and all that sort of stuff. And I was mad at God for a while and all that sort of thing. And, it's a very long story, but anyway, eventually I wound up going back to school to do the x-ray thing. And I always kind of knew, like, well, someday I'll look back and I'll kind of understand why my path took my life's journey took the path it did. And I have to say, I mean, I don't know if I still completely understand that now, but now that it's better part, like that was all about 19 years ago. But what I do know is I had a very interesting experience that not a lot of people have. Obviously, most people never have that sort of an experience living as a monk or a friar or a nun or a religious sister, for the women. But sometimes I'm just blown away at the I just see certain fruits even almost 20 years later because of that immersion I had in so much church stuff, so much stuff about so much Catholic church stuff. I have this rich uh, I have this richer background in, and don't get me wrong, I wish I was more uh, there's so much, like, when it comes to the scriptures, I don't know if you can hear that, but there's some barred owls really going off over here, making some funny calls. But anyway, I need to delve into the scriptures more and really enrich myself with all that more so than I currently have. But like, I can tell, even with that amount of time, just because like, you pray the Psalms every day, and while I was there, I like read through almost the whole New Testament and stuff like that. But there's just this scriptural uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Exposure, I guess, that I had, that I look back on now, and there's like things that I have in my mind, like memories I have of certain like scripture lines that I know it's in the Bible somewhere. And the reason I kind of have that stored away somewhere is because of like praying, and all the praying and reading and stuff I did that 6 months. 6 months plus, even like that time I went back for a couple months, sort of thing. So I don't know. It's just really cool. And another thing, I'll end on this, because this is getting a little bit long. But it's almost Christmas. Christmas is just a little over a week away. And in a lot of ways, one of the best Christmases I ever had was down there in Alabama at the friary. And obviously, there's kind of two ways that Christmas can be celebrated. I mean, two main ways anyway. It's kind of like the secular Christmas, and then there's the religious Christmas, where you could kind of say the more liturgical Christmas is celebrated in the way of, like, the church does it through the year and through the liturgical seasons. And down there, it was definitely all about the liturgical celebration of Christmas. Like decorating for Christmas, like Christmas Eve, and that sort of thing. Because up until then, it's just Advent. But it wasn't about. I mean, there were some presents, I guess, but it wasn't all about buying presents and giving presents, but and all that sort of thing. But it was very rooted on the birth of Jesus and spending time with your religious family. I didn't go home to my family back here in Kansas, but the community, your kind of family with the other friars. We even got to spend some time with the nuns that, in this case, they are nuns because they live in a monastery, but the Poor Clare nuns down there, that are they're kind of brother sister communities. They're actually founded by the same person, Mother Angelica, if you know who that is. You can probably figure out which group of Franciscans I'm talking about already if you know who Mother Angelica is. But just the time spent with the other brothers, time spent with the sisters, which was a lot shorter amount of time. But we went up to Hansville where the nuns are and visited with them a bit on Christmas and that sort of thing. It was just it was a very simple Christmas in some ways, but it was a very deeply touching one. And yeah, it was one of my probably the best Christmas I ever had down there. But anyway, I'll end with that. This is almost 26 minutes long, so yeah, I'll just hang out here at my camp. Maybe I'll be able to keep my pipe lit now that I'm not blabbing on a video. Yeah, I'll make sure I don't freeze tonight, which that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But I'm Gareth, the Flint Hills Briar. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening to me run my mouth, and I'll see you next time.